So I want to talk about a topic today regarding, was Jesus a victim? Did Jesus teach us the power of victimhood? This topic stemmed from a post that I made on my Substack. And if you haven't had a chance to check out my Substack, I'll post a link in the description in the comments after this live session is over. So I posted this picture here. So I posted this picture on my Substack, just really in reference to a good man. It says a good man follows Christ, is led by the Spirit of God, provides for his family, leads his family, loves his wife, is bold as a lion, lays down his life for his wife and family, prays with and for his family, teaches the word to his family, does not whine and complain, is not a victim, obtains favor from the Lord. So, in response to this post on Substack, someone posted this. In response to the picture I just showed you, right? Is not a victim is so strange in the context of Christ, who showed us the power of victimhood and encouraged us to take up the cross. If we're not taking the call to an openness to martyrdom seriously, what precisely is the crucifixion? A mockery of humanity. It's always so interesting to see images of Christianity so obviously in contradiction with themselves. So naturally, I had to post a response to that. So this is what I posted. Christ showed us the power of sacrifice by his act on the cross. In turn, we sacrifice our lives to live for him. As Paul states in Galatians 2:20, for I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And this life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself up for me. So that's what Galatians 2:20 says. We should willingly lay down our lives and pick up his life. There is no victimhood at all in what Christ has done for us. He may have been painted as a victim, but he never saw himself as one. He chose to lay his life down. No one took it from him. And when I saw that, that made me think, the problem that we have today with so many of the people in Christianity, especially in the black church, is because we believe that there was power in being a victim. That there is power in having someone oppress us. We hear this constantly, especially if you go to a black church. If you go to a black church, you know what I'm talking about. You know that you'll hear the pastor talking about, oh, there's glory in suffering. There's glory in struggling. There's glory in being at the bottom of the barrel. While there's a kernel of truth to that, because it humbles you, it allows you to recognize that without God, you're nothing. That type of victimhood mentality is not biblical. That victimhood mentality comes from Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, Marxism. It's the whole oppressor-oppressed dynamic. And that started primarily in the black church through a man by the name of James Cone. James Cone was the one that started this black liberation theology stuff. He started pushing this black liberation theology in the black community to have people think that being a victim is more powerful than having sacrificial love, than walking in the power that God has given through us, to us, through the life of Jesus. So therefore, Jesus was not a success. Yeah, this man actually said that Jesus was not a success. Just take a listen to this.
Watch what 2024 chicken does to your belly.
This is a chicken from 1957, and this is a chicken from 2023.
James Cone, you're one of the brilliant minds in this country, certainly on the
It's not so obvious because the resurrection was not obvious and transformed that failure of success, the gospel, through obvious of ultimate success through failure. It's a gospel of ultimate success through obvious failure. That's why the cross is at the center of the gospel. The cross is not a gospel of success. Jesus did not succeed. He failed. But God took that failure and transformed that failure into success.
I'll pause it there for a moment. You see that he had the confidence and boldness to say that Jesus was a failure. This sounds very, very familiar to what Jamal Bryant has said in the past. You have to understand something. In this strain of black liberation theology, they see victimhood, they see failure as powerful. Because what that does, that paints them as being a victim. And that there is power in being a victim. And the power comes from the ability to point out the faults of their oppressor, to point out the faults of the system. These people truly believe that Jesus did not accomplish his Father's will by dying on the cross and being raised from the dead. They really believe that Jesus still has work to do in terms of disrupting these systems here in America, disrupting the system of white supremacy, disrupting the system of patriarchy. That's what these people truly believe. That's why when you go to these kind of churches, they constantly preach about being oppressed, because to them, the fact that Jesus did get up again and gave us the ability to live a life free of sin, that he got up with all power in his hand, was not enough, because in their minds, they're still a victim and they're still oppressed.
Now, it's very important when you talk about ultimate success, it's not so obvious because the resurrection was not obvious. The tomb was empty, but yet nothing was there. I feel today with so much focus on building buildings and all the other humongous things that we do, that we fail to see that the cross is at the heart of what the black church ought to be about. It was not very difficult for the black church to see that during the time in which it was born. Because being a slave church, that was not success. That it was obvious failure there. Now, the problem is that the church has lost its legacy. It has lost its message. And when success becomes the focus of it, it loses its mission and it loses its message. I would like to see the church not be so concerned about its success, but much more concerned about a kind of success through failure.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's why the church is always talking about the struggle. That's why the church is always talking about dealing with victimization. Always talking about the black church. I'm speaking about the black church specifically. It's always talking about what somebody else is doing. It's always talking about using government, working through the government to further the aim of this idea of being oppressed, this idea of being a victim. When you have that mentality, it doesn't matter what you do. You will always, always, always find a reason to struggle. You will always, always, always find a reason for failure. You'll justify your failure. You will justify that. People love to be painted as a victim. That takes the responsibility off of you. If you are painted as a victim, then everything that happens to you is not your fault. It's not your decisions. It's not your mentality. It's not the people you surround yourself with. It's not what you say. You have nothing to do with it. So everything that happens to you is somebody else's fault. That is empowering for a lot of people. It allows them to sit at home. It allows a lot of men to sit at home and do nothing. It allows a lot of women to collect money from the government. And see, this is that mentality that has permeated the black community for the last 60-something years that has led the black community to the state that it is in. That's why I call these people church plants. These people have contributed to the depressed state in the black community with this mindset.
And where its failure is at the heart of things. So I would want to put my emphasis there. I'm concerned that the church doesn't get too concerned about its own survival. Because Jesus said, people who seek to save their life shall lose it. But if you lose your life for the sake of the least of these, then you'll find your life.
All right.
And that's another thing too. So many people in the Christian world are biblically illiterate. Jesus didn't say that. Jesus said if you, these people, I'm sorry to laugh, but so many people are so biblically illiterate. He did not say that. He said he who loses his life for the gospel will find it. Not for the least of these. See how he twisted that to, again, project this black liberation theology, this social gospel. I'm trying to give you the history and the lineage of this social gospel stuff. It comes from James Cone. It comes from people like that. That's why you always hear black pastors, especially, talk about the least of these, because they take their marching orders, they take their ideology, they take their theology from people like James Cone, who takes the gospel and views it through this social gospel lens. So therefore, in their eyes, Jesus was a victim. Jesus was not successful. Jesus was a failure. And they think that there is power in victimhood. That's why I constantly say that we're not victims, we are empowered for greatness. That empowerment does not come from a Marxist ideology. That empowerment comes from us laying down our lives and picking up his life, and then his life works through us. That's how we have victory. So no, Jesus was not a victim. Jesus did not have a victim mindset. Jesus did not have a victim mentality.